What's up, guys, and welcome back to the West Side. I've got in my hands one of the most exciting and talked about paddles from Selkirk, the SLK Era Power Elongated. I already had my first play session yesterday. I already broke this thing in, so you already know the drill. Let's go ahead and talk about this. The first thing I want to talk about is the feel, because that's what stood out to me the most. This paddle just feels solid and sturdy. If you've ever hit an Agassi or a Pro 4, the sound that you get from those paddles is very poppy, very loud. It sounds a little bit more hollow. This is quite the opposite of that. The sound is not as loud, it's not as poppy. The paddle feels a lot more dense, I guess is the best word to describe. And it's a little bit quieter on the impact. It's not gonna have that much of a loud popping sound like the Agassi or the Pro 4. Now, I actually quite like this because I felt like my paddle was built with good quality, that it was built strong, that it was built sturdy. At least it gave me the impression. Obviously, time will tell if this holds up. Now, this is a power paddle, and it's advertised as a power paddle. The big difference though between this and some of Selkirk's other paddles is that this actually plays like a power paddle. Now, technically the 007 was their power paddle too. It's not really a mainstream paddle. This was from their labs, but this feels like a much more well-rounded paddle than that 007. And just like all other strong power paddles, there is a bit of a learning curve when you start to break in this paddle. For me, it took me a little bit longer than expected just because I came from playing with my Valère Control 2 Forza. That's a wide body, it's a control paddle. It's the total opposite of this. So I had to get used to this. After I had just gotten used to my control paddle, I came back and I started playing with this now. After I got used to the more narrow body and the higher swing weight, I really started beaming some of my drives. And that was my favorite thing to do. This thing was built to drive the ball, especially in 1v1s. I think this paddle does exceptionally well in 1v1s, especially if you've seen the PPA Tour recently, the last one in Orange County. Jack Sock and James Ignatowicz were just absolutely killing it in their 1v1s. You can tell that they were just drilling it with this paddle, and I'm sure they had more weight on it than I did. And this is what actually first impressed me. When I first watched that PPA Tour, I thought, dude, if these pros are using it and they're doing this good with it, that means this paddle is up there. It's one of the elite paddles if the pros are using it like this and finding so much success. As far as pop goes, it did have higher end pop. It wasn't anything spectacular. It wasn't the best of the best, but it was there. It was a strong amount of pop. It was more than my Agassi, and I'm not sure what it is because they're both 16 millimeters, but the Agassi just felt like it had a little bit more give, a little bit more dwell time. This one felt like it had less, so I think that's what contributed to the paddle having a little bit more pop than I expected. When it came to control, I really struggled to use this paddle in a controlled manner. You're gonna see in some of my footage, I cannot reset the ball with this paddle. At least not yet, okay? I was really frustrated with how bad I was doing on my resets. I found that this paddle was not as plush as the Carbon True Foam 2 or the Agassi. Like I said, I'm gonna go back to the way that it felt. I think since the paddle felt more dense and less giving whenever I would hit the ball, that made me lose some of my feel for that ball. And so, although it had a lot of power, it did come at a cost with my control. I just couldn't feel the ball that well. The paddle wasn't giving me the feedback that I'm normally used to, so I couldn't really adjust my resets because I couldn't tell if I was hitting the ball in the corner, on the side. My resets were just falling short and it was taking me a while to adjust to it. Dinking is as expected from a power paddle. It's nothing too crazy. I actually found myself dinking less because my pop was really carrying me through a lot of my points. I just decided, you know what? Why am I gonna dink? I'd rather just speed it up because I know I have a better chance at speeding it up and catching them off guard and probably winning in a hands battle because my pop is gonna be more than my opponent's. And for it being an elongated paddle and adding about 0.4 ounces of weight to my paddle, it's about a total of 8.5 ounces. My hand speed actually didn't suffer as much as I thought it would. I don't like when my paddles are too heavy, but I did want to add enough weight just so that it felt a little bit more stable. Overall, I found that this paddle was really hard to get used to at first, but once I really dialed it in and got used to it, it was a ton of fun. And as of right now, I'm actually not too worried about the durability because the way that this paddle feels, it just feels like it's built solid on the inside. And for me, as a consumer, when I buy a paddle, I at least want to feel like my paddle is built well. So again, time will tell if this is gonna hold up, but at least it feels good right now. It feels like it's gonna hold up pretty well. The core feels solid, so I'm hoping it holds up. This paddle is gonna be very popular amongst competitive players because I think it does go toe-to-toe against some of the higher end power paddles like the Pro 4s, the Agassi, and the 11624. You've probably seen a lot of comparisons that this feels very, very similar to an 11624 power paddle, but I think you're gonna be seeing this paddle a lot more at rec plays and at tournaments. That's gonna wrap it up for my first impressions on the SLK Era Power. What do you guys think of Selkirk's new power paddle? Would you buy this instead of a Pro 4 and save $80? I think that's a question a lot of people are considering now, seeing that this paddle is actually putting out like Selkirk says it is. Thanks for sticking around to the end, and I'll see you guys again on the west side.